All right, everyone. The FBI report into Brett Kavanaugh has been concluded. That is, the FBI they finished early. I think they had until Friday, and by the middle of Wednesday, they had concluded their investigation. That points to the pretty high likelihood that the FBI is going to say, "Look, in their final report, these are allegations. This is the testimony. Here's the facts. Based on this, we can't establish that a crime was committed." Watch what you're about to see over the next couple days, because now Mitch McConnell said, okay, we are having a vote Saturday, no ifs, ands, or buts, no more delays, fuck it, we're taking it to the floor, stop with the delays, although there is a possibility. Look, the Democrats are trying to delay again. They're currently setting the groundwork by saying, the FBI didn't interview all of the witnesses we wanted them to interview. Some of the people that gave testimony they haven't interviewed. This is not a full investigation. It's like, the FBI, if you are honestly, the Democrats are playing a dangerous game now too, not just the Republicans. Let me make this clear. They're playing a very dangerous game because they spent months defending the FBI, talking about how it was credible, it was perfect, everyone in the FBI was upstanding, and now they're trying to go against the FBI report that they themselves got after threatening the Republicans. They came forth and they said, give us the FBI investigation. And Trump said, okay, we'll give you an FBI investigation. Now they're questioning the scope of the investigation. It's going to look a little bit odd. This could overextend them. There was a thing today I was reading on sort of the analysis of the fallout of the Kavanaugh stuff. And they're like, in the Senate, it's energizing Republicans. And it's making it look better for them, certainly in the Senate, but it's endangering maybe some of their seats in the House. A fairly good explanation. You got to understand, to my understanding, Jeff Flake is leaving politics. So, the fact that he flaked out doesn't really have anything to do with the midterms, except that all the other Republicans are steeled in opposition to that. Basically, two Republicans decided to say we want an investigation. Jeff Flake, who's leaving, so he did it to grandstand. Murkowski, who did it because of her specific constituency and the fact that she happens to be a female GOP senator, kind of has to. And then Grassley, McConnell, and all these others, like, okay, go ahead, have your FBI investigation. Since then, Lindsey Graham has gone on a sort of weird tour. I think sort of since he's older, his last hurrah tour of browbeating people, where he's like telling people to shut up and saying, well, I've known Brett Kavanaugh for a long time. Fuck yourself, basically. It's very funny. Because remember, I'm not a Lindsey Graham fan. He's a McCainite war hawk. But it is funny to see him finally doing the job that he's paid to do. As far as the Kavanaugh stuff goes, here's my expectation. I expect that Kavanaugh, the investigation exonerates him, at least of any real evidence that he's done anything wrong. The vote will be along party lines, and he'll be confirmed. It's possible there will be a tie. It's possible that either Flake or Murkowski still flakes out, and Pence has to come in. That would set off a massive political firestorm. It'd be great. It'd be better than Christmas. I actually hope that happens. I hope that either Flake or Murkowski still refuses to vote for him, so you have a 50-50 vote split. I hope one of them votes no, so that Pence gets to come in and say, okay, Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed. I'm voting yay. And it'll be hilarious. Either that or Trump torpedoes his own nominee. He's like, well, I don't want Pence to have to do that, so I guess we're going to have to try again. Thanks, Democrats. We have an open slot on SCOTUS now. It'll be a real fun time. Oh, that'd be so funny. There's like a 1% chance of either of those events happening, but just think about the palpable chaos that there would be. Hey, you think that you see a media circus right now? It'd be crazy. So over the next 48 hours, as the Senate, goes into the room where the one copy of this report is being held under lock and key and armed guard, it's a weird process. It's basically, we don't want this getting out. We need to have the vote. Maybe we declassify. I think the report should be released to the public. I don't think it should be classified. I don't think it should be confidential. I think we have a right to know what we're about to buy insofar as a SCOTUS nominee. I mean this. As an unbiased party, as someone who's not a Republican or a Democrat, I want to see what the FBI has to say about Brett Kavanaugh. I think after the way the Senate has acted, and all sides are kind of culpable in this, I don't really trust the Senate to make good decisions at this point. Whether they vote yay or nay at this point makes very little difference. The Senate itself is highly dysfunctional, has fallen into the kind of partisan, the kind of bitterness that the Senate was initially designed to prevent. Like, that was supposed to be a facet of the House. The House is where you have bawdy, drunken debates and stuff like that. The Senate was supposed to be more solemn, more a gentleman's club where dudes, went in and acted like, the justices of old, maybe. That was the initial intent, which is why initially senators weren't directly voted on at all. They were voted on by state legislatures, which meant they could reflect partisan politics, but they reflected a different, more refined version of it, supposedly. Back in the Enlightenment, this made sense, believe it or not. These days, the House of Representatives is basically 90% lawyers and businessmen and millionaires, so a little bit different. It's a sign of the times. Maybe we need to tinker further with the political process. There should be a poverty test. Nobody who makes too much money can be in the House of Representatives. They can only run for the Senate. That actually might not be a bad idea. That would inject populism into the House, and then you have to make a certain amount to be a senator as the flip side, so like business owners and lawyers can be represented still. I think that'd be a funny idea. Why not? We can redraw the Constitution for that if we really wanted to. It'd be an interesting proposal. Maybe people could debate that. As far as Kavanaugh goes, I expect him to be confirmed. That will harm the Democrats' midterm chances because right now they energized their fan base with the hashtag resist, the Me Too, believe her stuff. If they fail anyway, a lot of their fans are going to be very let down. Meanwhile, the GOP is fucking foaming mad. They're looking at this situation, they're looking at Flake as a traitor right now, and Murkowski, they're saying this is a deep state bullshit, this is unnecessary delay. It's getting them mad right before the midterms. I think Republican turnout, regardless of what happens with Kavanaugh, is likely to rise. Honestly, and you look at Trump's polling numbers, this has not only not given him a hit, it appears to possibly have boosted his overall support. Because the Democrats look like bullies, and the never-Trumpers are the ones that led the charge to delay the confirmation over and over. I still say McConnell should have brought it forward to a floor vote and dared Jeff Flake and Lisa Murkowski to vote no. I think he should have dared them to do so. I think Murkowski certainly would have ended up voting yes. I don't think that she would have had the political gusto to say no in the face of an emboldened and completely solidified voting bloc of the party. Jeff Flake might still have held out because he has nothing to lose. He's not running for re-election, but ultimately possibly would have voted yes. Either way, they would have had the votes. Pence would have stepped in. I think what they want is for a couple of the Democrats to end up voting yes, because there are some vulnerable Senate Democrats that if the FBI report says he did nothing wrong that we can tell, we don't have evidence of wrongdoing, they may be compelled to vote in favor. Like McCaskill, I think, might end up having to vote for Brett Kavanaugh. Collins, I think, is Marsha Collins a Republican or a Democrat? I can't actually remember. There's so many important Senate races right now, sometimes they get mixed up. Meanwhile, the Senate's a total toss-up. It could literally go either way. It could be that if the polling is off by 2 points in the Republicans' favor, which I think is a long shot, but let's say, argue devil's advocate, say it is, Democrats could walk away with certainly the control of the Senate by several seats. In the other direction, the Republicans could blow it out of the park and end up with a 5-seat majority. That's, I think, more likely than the latter. Than the former. I think all things considered, 2 or 3 is the most likely number. It'd be really a little overly optimistic, I think, to count on more than that. You'd have to have systemic polling bias or a late surge in turnout for Republicans. This will drive higher voter registration for the Republicans, though. Although I'm not sure that registered voting statistics matter as much in the post-2016 world, at least in the meantime. Because the Trump bloc is not entirely comprised of people who have registered as Republicans. A lot of these people are still, they're independent or even some Democrats, but they still lean against the Democratic Party, I think, because of its inherent problems, because of its infighting, the rise of the far left, maybe dissuaded from voting for them because of the actions of the DNC. And they look at this. I think there are a lot of centrist Democrats that aren't taken in by the moral panic, that don't like the social justice warrior thing, and they're looking right now at Kavanaugh having his life destroyed and being called all sorts of names on allegation alone. But the Democrats over the next couple of days are going to make a second pitch to the public in the public square to try to drive, as Scott Adams has termed it, the new sort of direct democracy-laden style of politicking. Social media politics, you could call them. I think what you're going to see is that they're going to get away from Brett Kavanaugh molested and raped, because that's no longer considered credible, into Brett Kavanaugh's actions and words after being called a gang rapist were unbecoming someone who's going to be on SCOTUS. Basically, he drinks too much and he swears a bit and he got angry and sounded a little partisan for a while. Now, that was because he was being constantly antagonized. That's because large numbers of people spent weeks insinuating that he was a career criminal that was wasted every weekend and constantly tried to drug and rape people. Which, by the way, Swetnick, in order to avoid perjury charges, I think has gone back a little bit on that in her public testimony to NBC, of all places. Avenatti there, still being tight-lipped, which you can expect. It's a hit job. At least the second and third claims were probably politically motivated. Now, insofar as Christine Ford, I'm willing to entertain the possibility that she was drunk enough to think someone who looked a little bit like Brett Kavanaugh was Brett Kavanaugh. I really honestly believe that's possibly what we're seeing. And then it was used as a political hatchet job. And then other people who are politically motivated jumped on the Me Too bandwagon hoping to cause chaos and a moral panic in order to stop a SCOTUS nominee. That's what I think we're seeing. No, I don't believe Swetnick. Not in any way, shape, or form. When she's going back on the most important chunks of her testimony and defaulting, as the Democrats are at large, to Brett Kavanaugh is a loud drunk, kind of lied about how much he drinks. How do you objectively tell how much is too much? That's in the eye of the beholder. So you can say, well, I don't drink heavily all the time, but, maybe your definition of drinking heavily is having more than a bottle of wine a day, is having more than 12 beers in a day or something, more than the scotch and the bourbon and the vodka. You also added rum and gin in, so that was a heavy day for you. It could be there are some people who are basically career drinkers. That doesn't mean that they can't function. It doesn't mean it interferes with his job. It doesn't mean he raped people. I think that's pretty evident. The idea the Democrats waging a war on beer is very, very funny. Also, probably not going to ingratiate them to the population. The Democrats want another prohibition. You must vote against them. You should vote Republican at your kegger party. You should have kegs for Kavanaugh, essentially. That would be good. Yeah, kegs for Kavanaugh, more catchy, perhaps, than drink beer for Brett Kavanaugh. Supreme Court Ale coming to a store near you very soon by political opportunists. Trust me, some microbrewery will do weird shit like that. They'll have like a Kavanaugh keg ale or something like that. And that'd be really, really funny. Then you get a picture of him with it. You buy the 6-pack and you get him to sign it, and then you take a selfie with Brett Kavanaugh. It's like, can we go back to your chambers? Let's have a party. I'm sure. Let's get some really into it girls. Let's get Ginsburg. I bet she's just a total beast sometimes. That's come on. A bunch of old people do occasionally have a little bit too much to drink. Ginsburg has been drunk at presidential addresses. You're not going to be able to convince me that within the American political structure, it's unacceptable that a SCOTUS nominee should maybe drink heavily at times. Now, trust me, remember when they were doing the ACA stuff and how half of them were drunk at the time? Well, remember that time there was a government shutdown? I think it was the first Obama shutdown, and they were trying to pass like an emergency budget extension. And remember, I think it was Mitch McConnell said, well, the stench of booze was overwhelming in that room. And it's like, basically most of them were drunk. Most of the people in our Congress are habitual drunks, or they use drugs. What do you think Rubio does? What were those little pills that he took during the debates? Do you think that they were illicit? I think that they were. I also think he probably snorts coke. He's got that peppy attitude of the sort of the people you would expect to find at an ecstasy disco or something, in all honesty. Ted Cruz probably does stuff. Bush famously. You remember that time that Bush was obviously a little inebriated and he opened the beer there and it was like foaming and falling over and I think his wife was like, he reaches over the handkerchief stuff and he's like sitting there with the drunken grin. And he said, no, it was a non-alcoholic beer. I stopped drinking years ago. It's like bullshit. No, trust me, George W. did not stop drinking. Neither will Kavanaugh. And that's okay. The fact that he has a beer, who cares? But on Saturday, we will finally get now a vote on Kavanaugh. I want to see the FBI report publicly. I'm tired of this media circus, and it'll be fun. But for the next couple days, you're going to endure even more media circus. The Democrats will pivot away from Brett Kavanaugh, the rapist, to Brett Kavanaugh, the slovenly drunk, and they will try to convince the U.S. population that having a Budweiser or two disqualifies you from being somewhere in the judicial branch. And they're probably going to end up, taking quite a few punches from that in the midterms. The Democrats could be screwing themselves right now. And you could see a few Democrats, I think, possibly defect. That's about all. Peace out.